Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Two Cool Caregivers. I am Erica.
And I'm Jacquelyn.
And we are two
cool
caregivers.
I'm gonna say that at the same time.
Today, we are going to talk about who is a caregiver and why so many of us, especially younger caregivers, struggle to identify with that word sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a very easy answer is that it's hard, but there's some really fantastic characteristics that also come from it. And we're going to talk about that too. All right. So let's start with oh, no. Let's start with, hey, Erica, how you been, girl?
Oh, hey, how are you? I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just living life, figuring out what life now that mommy's not here is, and falling on my face every day.
Yeah, so just trying to figure out the meaning to life, no big deal. Just simple everyday tasks like finding the eternal answers to life's questions.
I'm gonna go in to ask you, how's your mom?
My mom is doing really well. We've been doing physical therapy consistently for the last couple weeks, and she is moving and grooving, and I am so proud of her. Her walking has improved exponentially, meaning she can now move at a snail's pace with minimal support. So that's huge for us. So I'm pretty happy with everything right now.
Something is better than nothing, and I'm happy that you're happy.
Yep. Yay, happiness.
I know, yay, joy. All right, so today we're going to talk about caregivers and what is a caregiver and
why are so many of us super weird about that word?
I mean, not gonna lie, I was super weird about it. I probably didn't even call myself one until like 2020 when my mom's care became 24/7, but I was obviously her caregiver years before that.
But it took you a while to identify as that person, right?
Because the word, it didn't feel young and fun and cool. I was like, caregiver. I was like, no, I'm like,
and this is something I feel like so many of us, especially young caregivers, have in common. When I first started taking care of my mom and people asked me what I did, I would say I was unemployed. And then maybe I would mention as like a second thought, like I also take care of my mom, or I'm unemployed, but my mom has dementia. So I stay at home with her and we hang out together every day. I had such an internal struggle with how to identify myself to others. Like I knew what I was doing, you know, I know what I do every day. I know my schedule. I know it's interlaced with my mom's schedule. But explaining that to other people, I think kind of brought on the confusion of who am I? How do I identify? Do I use the word caregiver? Do I use another word? And
it's so interesting that you would rather identify as unemployed than a caregiver.
It makes me laugh a little bit. Like I didn't know what to say in the beginning. No. I didn't know what to say because I think a large part of our issue with identifying as a caregiver is the word itself. Caregiver sounds a little old, sounds a little rusty, not very sexy. What do you have it? Do you want to read the definition of what a caregiver is?
Yes, a caregiver is a person involved somehow in the caring for or otherwise assisting an older person or younger person with some sort of disability with health and life tasks.
Huh. Okay. So yeah, very unsexy, bland definition. I see why we didn't identify with it.
Right. You're helping someone and there's like no identity for yourself.
I think one of the reasons a lot of us struggle to identify with that word in the beginning is because most of the time we have become a caregiver after leaving another job, most likely a 9-to-5 job that was on a spot in our career path, that part of a 10-20 year plan. So society tells us those are the jobs that we value. The ones that we wake up to, we get in the car, we go to an office, we clock in, we work X amount of hours, and we get a paycheck at the end of the week, you know? So that's how we are pretty much all brought up to define success and jobs and careers in that very black and white, in those very black and white terms of you do a thing, you make some money for it. Being a caregiver does not follow that definition of a traditional job in any sense of the word. From the hours to the pay, which is non-existent most of the time. Shout out to IHSS people though.
Hey.
You know, like we are in a world that most people never will understand, and they will never also, which means they also won't understand the value that we are getting out of it and the work that we are putting into it and why it is one of the hardest jobs in the world, regardless of whether or not our society views it as that. Yeah, I think one of the main things that contributes to why we struggle to see ourselves as caregivers is money. It sucks, but we are taught our whole lives to measure success in dollars and not personal fulfillment and laughter. And most family caregivers, they aren't paid for their jobs, you know, and they can, and not getting a paycheck is a way that forces us to feel like our job is somehow less valid or less important because our work is not generating an income. It's saving a life, which I personally value more. But you know, like that's what we're taught. You know, we're taught that a job makes you money. It, you know.
And I tell you the chokehold that capitalism had on me, I felt worthless because I was doing like the hardest work I had ever done, to be honest. No job until that point had paid me. Well, no job paid me well enough. Let's just start there. But like with the amount of work that I was putting in to care for my mom, I hadn't put that amount of work in no job ever. And I
Oh
was
no,
like,
no,
and
no, no.
I'm not getting paid for this.
Right? It's the hardest job you'll ever have, and it's also the worst paying job you'll ever have.
Super facts, but it pays in other ways. It's very rewarding. I'm sorry, I'm hot.
Sorry, Jacquelyn's just stripping right now. It's like 95 right now.
Taking my clothes off. It's just hot. I was like, I can't do this podcast and be like completely welching. I'm sorry, y'all.
It's rough. It's rough.
This is an honest moment here.
So I want to talk a little more about that transition part of going from a quote unquote real job to a caregiver job. I think that transition can have a huge effect on our confidence as a caregiver, you know, because going from a 9 to 5 job to caring for a human being 24/7, there's going to be some amount of personal discomfort that comes with a massive career change like that. And I think it's really hard to admit to yourself why you're feeling that way, but that just means it's all the more important, you know? Once you learn how to view success in non-monetary terms and view it in things like you got your parent to eat their dinner, to brush their teeth, to go to the bathroom, things like that are totally successes and are totally just as valuable as money or promotions or whatever society tells us we should be working for.
On top of that, something that we actually talked about prior to encouraging all of you caregivers. So there's pretty much like 2 ways that you become one. And the first way is that shit hits the fan and you become one overnight.
Trial by fire, baby.
Literally. So you're like, I'm living my life. I got my job. I'm happy. And all of a sudden it's like, we need someone to take care of this person. It is important. It must happen right now. It's imperative. And so,
in Jacquelyn's case, you're like, I'm hustling, I'm bustling, I'm in New York City, living my best life. Oh, phone call. Who's this? Oh, what? I got to go home and take care of 2 people at once. Okay.
Lord have mercy. It's a 5. So yes, the second way that most people become caregivers is they just like slowly start seeing that their parent or sibling or whoever needs help. And they'll just help with this task here and then that task. And then it so happens that they need more help over time. And so you adjust your schedule just a bit more to fit theirs. And then next thing you know, you're like, I'm feeling overwhelmed by the amount of help that I'm having to support someone with. And that also means that you are a caregiver. And also, some of those tasks include cooking for a loved one, providing skills that they were once able to do but can't. So if you go to your, loved one's house and you're like, your floors need to be mopped, and then you mop them, guess what?
You're a caregiver.
If you start running errands for that person, you're a caregiver.
Caregiver.
Um, when you start paying bills and or sorting the bills or making sure that they aren't getting scammed by these people who call their house all day, you are
Caregiver.
a. And when you ensure that their medication is taken, you're a
Really good caregiver.
really good caregiver. And then on top of that, like personal hygiene and all of that, you are a caregiver. However, there are also people who don't live in the same state. If you are managing and making sure that all of these tasks get done, you're a caregiver.
There are so many, like, I'm glad you mentioned that last part too, because I have so many friends and physicians where their loved ones are in the later stages and they've transitioned to needing more help. They might be in like assisted living facilities, and they're in a situation where they are no longer living in the same house with their loved one, but they're still on the phone every day. They're still calling the facility. They're still calling the doctors. They're picking things up. They're dropping things off. They're doing paperwork. Um, and I think it's easier for those people to dismiss themselves as being caregivers, kind of like a lot of us do in the beginning, because I think our brains might tell us that we're not doing quote unquote enough to earn the title of caregiver. And that is such a volatile, inaccurate, nasty little brain thought that you just need to flush out of your mind right now. Because if you are doing literally even one task to improve your loved one's life, you are caring for them. You are a caregiver.
What you do? I'm just whispering it into your psyche so that you guys know that this is who you are.
Yeah.
So on top of that, I totally get why people also hesitate to maybe take on that word. Sometimes you can be in denial about the diagnosis that your loved one has. It's scary when, when someone that you love begins changing. It's a shake to what you are used to. And
Totally. And I think owning that word is accepting that. And that's not something any of us are able to do like overnight, you know?
Absolutely.
The reason I had so much trouble identifying with the word caregiver in the beginning was I kind of felt a bit of shame. I hate that word. It's a gross word, and I don't love myself for admitting to it. When I became a full-time caregiver, it was in the middle of me having finally found my path. I had a wonderful job where I was getting to write jokes for comedians on a television show. I had finally found my footing in entertainment, living the dream, making money. And then to go from that kind of personal fulfillment to now you're a caregiver and you have to redefine your personal fulfillment. I think I definitely felt a bit of shame with that, because I wasn't ready to abandon all of these things that I thought were
Your
going to be
hopes.
my path. Yeah. All of these
Yeah.
things that I had worked years to achieve, these plans that were coming up down the road, all got erased because I had to redefine myself as a dementia caregiver, and that transition was hard. So I didn't call myself a caregiver for many months. As more time went on, I think I was subconsciously getting way better at accepting who I am and what I do. And now being able to call myself a caregiver is such a source of pride, like zero, zero, zero shame. Like, I am so proud to talk to strangers about how to wipe a person with Alzheimer's butt, like I love sharing my knowledge. I love talking about caregiving. I love this identity.
No, it's absolutely become a passion of mine too, more so because I think that we can help change the stigma that's been associated with the word. And so
Mm.
let's talk a little bit about that. Like, we often hear about how hard being a caregiver is, and how we have to deal with frustration and fatigue and guilt and resentment and depression. And so that's what I think so many people attribute caregiving to.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I can say is, if you see this journey as an opportunity to grow into a better you, it will absolutely change you in ways that you could never imagine.
Totally. And all the words you were listing before, like the guilt, the depression, the shame,
Mhm.
like those are all words that I think every caregiver can identify with. And not because we are so not because we're like drowning in sadness all the time, but because being a caregiver forces us to improve upon all of those guilt feelings, those shame feelings, those resentment feelings, because if you don't take those head on and tackle them, you won't grow.
Swallow you. It'll swallow you
It'll
whole.
get worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just puts you in a very challenging spot. And no matter what, this job is going to be hard. You're going to have to pick yourself up every day. But that also builds a type of resilience that I don't see in people who have not done this type of work.
Totally, totally. I don't even think it would be humanly possible to have this kind of resilience without wiping a few butts, it's
Absolutely.
it forces you to not only do tasks you never thought you do, but do them with patience, with a smile, and about 1,000 times a day, depending on what the task is. So we're forced on the daily to exercise sometimes the worst parts of us.
Ooh, beautiful.
Right. And the more we do that, like we're working out all these muscles that some people like never are forced to. Like some people don't have to deal with mustering up the patience to walk 5 steps in the course of 30 minutes because that's how long it takes. Some people just will never be pushed to those places, but we're pushed every day to those places. And the result, if you do it right, is going to be just a better you every time.
Every time. Some of the perks and reasons that one should accept the term, especially if they are doing the work, is that once you identify as a caregiver, you can begin accepting the help that is out there. There's
Yes.
money, there's grants. There's starting to be so many more opportunities because we're much more out there and people are seeing us
Totally,
more.
totally. Yes, yes. I mean, I wasn't a caregiver before this, but it feels like a really positive time to be a caregiver. I feel such a sense of community. I feel seen as fuck,
Yeah.
I feel acknowledged.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful, because that's the kind of stuff that helps us feel more confident in our job when other people on the outside know how to look in, not just to look in, but know how,
How to. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, soon as you identify as a caregiver, you can find like-minded people. You can find a podcast like Two Cool Caregivers because you can type up that word. And so choosing to identify with something that you do will then help you find the community and the resources that you need to thrive while being a caregiver. I also want to say that what you do matters. And in order to do it well, you have to name it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we also planned a little game for this episode. And it's you're a caregiver when. And so mine's are you're a caregiver when you're excited about a good blood pressure reading that is not your own. You're a caregiver when you've milked a hand, but never a cow.
When you milked a hand.
Okay, so when you're like doing those blood sugar tests.
I was like, Jacquelyn, I had no idea you could milk a hand.
There's many things that can be milked.
You don't know about hand nipples?
Have you never milked a hand before? Oh my God. Get into it. All right. So I see that is a very niche joke.
So all you hand milkers out there, Jacquelyn's on your team.
I'm on your team, and I haven't milked a cow, but one day I will. I'm trying to milk all the things that I can now at this point.
Oh man,
this is getting X-rated. Okay, so on that note,
being a caregiver also means being more than a caregiver, because having and maintaining that sense of identity and freedom outside of caregiving is honestly one of the most important parts of being a caregiver. And it's a thing literally every single caregiver is going to give you unsolicited advice about. And you will hear it so many times. Self-care, blah, 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 blah. Freedom, blah, 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 blah. Take time for yourself, blah, 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 blah. And you ignore that advice, and then boom, it's been 2 years and you have no friends and you're washing your face like once a week. So learning how to be more than a caregiver was such an important part of my caregiving journey, because when I became a caregiver, it meant I was giving up my identity at my last job as a writer. So I had to recreate essentially a whole new identity for myself to give myself purpose and happiness, and do it in a way where I still had loads of free time to take care of my mom because she's my priority. So I made an OnlyFans. Yeah, dude. So I am an OnlyFans model now / caregiver. And you know what? I freaking love this identity. I am such a fan of the new me. For all the obvious reasons. OnlyFans is an awesome source of income and the obvious things that I'm going to tell you. But I'm also going to talk about a lot of things that you're not going to expect me to talk about, which is what a good exercise in both personal joy, fulfillment, in feeling sexy and uplifted, and also socialization, because holy crap, that being on OnlyFans and having a space where people are reaching out to me, talking to me, having conversations on a really consistent basis. That's kind of the first time that I've had that since becoming a caregiver. Before I found my own thing, I could not I cannot emphasize how isolated I was. I spoke to someone with dementia for the majority of the day. And then I could go a week, maybe 2 weeks without talking to friends, without hearing from anyone. It was just a very lonely and isolated existence. Whereas now I'm kind of forced to be social and I love it because it is such a good mental health break for me to have fun conversations outside of what can I get you? What do you need? What can I do for you? Dementia type things. So it's been fun in literally every single sense of the word.
Which is so rare to say about anything.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had any experience that's been 100%
It's
fun.
100% what I want and need. I don't know if
Yes.
that's lovely. I love that.
Yes. It's been so awesome just to like have a reason to put on lingerie and take cute pictures of myself. It's beautiful and fulfilling in a way that a non-caregiver could never understand because it's just so poetically beautiful to me to be able to finally have a reason and time to care about myself, to care about my appearance, to brush my hair, to wash my face, to do these little things that most people have nothing but time to do, and caregivers often struggle to accomplish. So I feel so complete in that sense of self, you know?
What I can say is on top of that, like we are still sexual. I'm sorry.
Beep,
The
beep.
sound outside my house is like ridiculous.
No,
Why are
that's
you?
actually a really sexy background. Keep talking.
Oh my God. Are you like in front of my house right now?
I think he's in your house.
He's literally stopping in front of my window. And when you're caring for someone, it's so easy to forget that like we're people too, and we have sexual desires, and like
Mm-hmm.
we want to we we still want and need to tap into every side of our self. And so I think
Totally.
for OnlyFans is so cool. We need to go lingerie shopping because you have some
Yeah.
beautiful pieces.
I need more. Let's do it.
So like what I think people don't really know is that self-care is so much more than lighting a candle or
Mm-hmm.
doing a
Smelling some lavender.
bath. Starting something that feeds you and feeds a side of yourself that you
Totally.
get to explore is
Uh-huh.
also a type of self-care, which is something that I talk about a lot on momofmymom.com, and of course at Mom of My Mom on every platform. I absolutely have a passion to help caregivers learn to maintain a sense of self, partly because now that I think back, I actually did a really good job making sure that I still hung out with my friends. And well, mind you, it took me years to get to that point.
But you
But,
got there.
right. And so I became good at not feeling guilty about leaving the house sometimes or having to hire care or just
Mm-hmm.
making time for me. And sometimes we need a push and someone to tell us that that is okay. And you can always find that at momofmymom.com and or at Mom of My Mom. Look, just look us up. If you
Just
type
go
in
there.
Mom of My Mom, you'll find us, okay?
So some final thoughts to wrap things up. Identity. We all have more than one.
Identity is important. And You can use this new identity, being a caregiver, to influence change in the outside world, but change within yourself also.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're signing off.
I think we're signing off.
All right. Where can we find your only fans at?
You can find that and all of my other social media accounts, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, what have you, all at Badass Caregiver.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So make sure you guys
Be cool.